Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at how to implement a subroutine in GoHighLevel. And I'm doing it by making AI calls with Air.ai. The subroutine that we're going to implement is one that switches agents. So I'm really basically calling a subroutine right here, believe it or not. And what that does, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos where some piece of code is used over and over and over and I call this code, they call them flows or whatever, but just my background is electrical engineering, computer science, and we use subroutines. And you do that for several reasons. You want to keep your code all in one spot that does one thing. That way, if you make it a service. That way, if you change it, if you need to change it, you don't have to go change it all over the place in all kinds of different places that it's used, because you've made copies of it all over. It does several things. One, it makes it easy to maintain and to debug, because if you're going to debug that function, you're doing it in one spot. And then once you get it down, it's automatically distributed everywhere. Versus if you have copies of it all over the place, you just copy. Then if you have a bug somewhere that you find, you've got to go fix that in all those places. And if you don't fix it just right or change the version or whatever it is you're trying to do, you've got a whole lot of work to go do this thing. So the simple solution is a thing they call subroutines. So as far as I know, there's not a subroutine function in GoHighLevel, but I'm going to show you how I'm using a subroutine right here. This is I'll call this a function call, subroutine call. Now, I don't have the ability to pass parameters per se with exactly the way that you would think you would pass parameters. I could potentially, if I wanted to pass parameters, I could attach some here as tags. That's one way. Another way that I could pass a parameter is inside my contact, I could put in extra fields in the contact that I've dedicated to passing parameters or dedicated to this particular function. So I'm doing some of that basically in here, but let's not worry too much about how we're passing parameters to this subroutine, other than I'm just trying to get the same functionality to work over and over. And I'll show you what I'm doing here. So if I tag a contact with switch contact to next air agent, there's already a routine, a flow running, ready to go, waiting for some contact to be tagged with this thing. And then that routine, so cancel out of this. That routine is this one, the agent round robin manager. So its trigger is if a contact gets this added to it. So I'm going to pass over the contact, and that's an inherent, I would say that's an inherent data structure that gets passed to one of the subroutines, if I want to call this a subroutine. So this thing, when I tag it with switch to next air agent, it gets added to this flow right here. At this point, I start modifying data. I'm doing a read, modify, write to the agent pointer that's in the contact. I'm adding 1 to it. So I start the agent pointer out at 0. When I first create the contact, it goes to 0. So then the first time I go to use it, I increment it, and right here is where the logic is for the ring buffer. And what I mean by a ring buffer or ring counter is this. It goes from agent 1 to agent 2 to agent 3 to agent 4 to agent 5. And I'm using a variable called the agent pointer, which I've added it's inside the contact structure. So inside the contact, I've added an additional field called agent pointer. I've also added agent prompt ID, and I've added agent list ID. So that is the prompt ID that this particular contact is going to use, and the list ID is the list that the agent's going to use. And the pointer is the current counter, if you will, counter or pointer. And so what that does is when it's set to 1, then I'm going to load these two variables with agent 1's data. When this pointer gets set to 2, so it's going to go from 1 first time through, and I'm going to increment it just prior to using it. Then it'll go load this agent prompt ID and this agent list ID with the prompt ID and list ID for agent 1 in this case. Then we're going to increment it again. The next time we go to use it, it'll select agent 2, agent 3, agent 4, agent 5. When it hits agent 5, it goes back to agent 1. So that's the ring counter concept, or ring buffer. Used to use ring buffers. It's just basically when you collect things, it's a buffer that's so big and it just loops around and lets you capture the last whatever amount of data that you've got coming in. So if you care about the data that's in one of these things, you want to be sure to read it periodically. But anyhow, this is a ring buffer or ring counter actually here. And then what it's doing is rotating through agent 1 through 5, agent 1 through 5. It just keeps doing that. And here's how I actually implemented it. So I increment the pointer and I just add 1 to it and I stick it back in there. I just look at it. I just read, modify, write. It's in C, it was ++. It's just incrementing it, the increment operator. Then I check here, is the pointer valid? Is it less than or equal to 5? So 5 is valid, and all the numbers below that, it should be in the range of 1 through 5, inclusive on both ends. So if we're at 0, if I was at, let's say I'm at 0 here, I'm at 0 when I come in, then this is going to take on the value of 1. And then we're going to go here. 1 is within this range. Good to go. And we'll drop over here. Agent pointer is valid. If we increment it up and it goes to 6, if it does 5 works, 6 will go this way. The agent pointer needs to roll over. So what it'll do is if it's over 5 ever, and it just goes to 1, and then it enters this section here in the assignment part as 1. So whatever it is, it gets 1 added to it. If it rolls over to 6, it goes back to 1, and that's the logic that's doing. I'm implementing a ring counter here. So once we get that assignment, whether it's, and this is just looking for what's the value. Is it equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? These are the different breakouts of it. None. This is just a safety net. Somehow we got here and it was not 1 through 5. It was none of them. It goes to 1. It gets assignment to 1. Other than that, I'm just grabbing. It's not showing me. I'm just grabbing this is from the contact, the agent prompt ID and list ID, and taking those. I have custom values set up, prompt 1 or prompt 2, because this is number 2. And see, this is agent 2 values. So these just bump along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very, very straightforward. So the assignment occurs here. The values get assigned, and then we go to and we roll here. At this point, this is where we communicate back to our calling function. So the calling function tags us up here. We execute. We start executing this right away. And then over here, we remove the switch contact we remove that tag that was added. So that is functionally how I'm implementing a subroutine in GoHighLevel. I apply a tag. This runs. And then it removes the tag once it's done its job. And then I wait here for the tag to be complete, to be removed. So this is I can park and wait and make sure that if that contact has that tag on it, it's just going to wait. It's going to wait until it doesn't include this condition, which is that variable being that tag being applied. So this calls it this. This is my return. This is the return, and then I'm passing data by doing it in the contact itself. Anyhow, I think that's useful, and I think there's a lot of code out there that I've seen people just copying chunks of code around. It's going to turn into a maintenance nightmare. It's going to turn into a bug nightmare, and this is a way to prevent it.